proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Brought to you by KingofAmazon.com. Go to KingofAmazon.com when you do your shopping for Amazon to help the King of Podcasts. Shop for Amazon at KingofAmazon.com.
So I'm sure other wrestling podcasters might not be talking about this so soon, but yours truly, King of Podcasts, will. I did talk about the fact back when Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff were announced as executive directors for Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown. Even though Bischoff was immediately removed after a very short time, Heyman stayed on board and basically worked Monday Night Raw. Well, what happened was that I talked about at the time last year was he did accomplish the easiest thing that could have been accomplished while being the executive director, while actually really having a run of the books, was stopping the ratings erosion, because it was starting to go down to the 2 million level and lower than that. And he was able to successfully bring the level back up to 2 million. And that's what happened. So he accomplished that, and we were starting to see new stars come on board. And some of the things that we saw in terms of booking decisions and what we saw in terms of being interested in the programming got better. Even with the pandemic on us, we still continue to see the ratings stay at a certain level, of course with a drop-off, but never to the level of this now. But with a change of the books and Bruce Pritchard now being in charge and more of a handling the creative team in a sense, immediately the ratings have dropped. And now we're seeing the way the ratings have dropped. It's no question that happened. It's not even close. So we saw what happened. And it's very unfortunate. And a lot has been written about what's going on now, because the ratings have become an issue once again. And this was not an issue before, but it's gotten severe. Because now there's press about it. And a little more press than it's expected. We're going to talk about that tonight. As I mentioned the fact, I call it the Paul Heyman resistance mark. Now, of course, if you know you've listened to this program for any significant amount of time, especially during the pandemic, I've talked about the stock market. I'm getting into investing. And there is a stock market reference, whether when you're looking at the graph or the chart for a particular business and you want to see how it's going to rise as a stock in price or go down as a stock in price. Okay, well, what happens is there are things you look at on a chart, all these different terms that are basically, it's just kumbaya. You get the kumbaya talk from the people that are talking about bears and bulls and all this bullshit. And then it's basically, you're on your own, kid. Because when you're looking at the stuff, there's all these different terms that are made to sound confusing, just so you get confused and that you are discouraged from being in the stock market or investing. But there are a couple of terms that do make sense. And so what happens is, in a stock price, you have support and you have resistance. So what happens is that when you're looking for something to skyrocket, when a product is going to do really well and a lot of buzz and hype is around it, and it's going to go through the moon, what happens is, while it's not making the big jump to success like it's going to eventually, it's going to go through these different levels of highs and lows. The highest high is support. The lowest low is the resistance. So there's a resistance level. The lowest part of the level that really is the default level. The worst that the show could perform if it's not being hot shot booked, or if there's, if they just had a whole lot of Andrade and Humberto Carrillo and Rey Mysterio and just other stars that we're trying to build up. Ricochet, Cedric Alexander, Aleister Black, and others, trying to build them up. Now, we see an immediate change of what was being done right away with what they did. And because of that, the ratings went and took a tumble. So I'm going to go and look back at when I actually talked about Heyman getting dropped and Bruce Pritchard taking the books. Well, I got to go back and look at when that was. But it's only been a month or so. If my eyes serves me correct, I believe it's only been a month or so that we saw all of this. And it's unfortunate because we're at this spot now where it didn't take much time for everything just to kind of fall apart. It really did. And here we are. I mean, what else are you going to do? Now, Bruce Pritchard, I mentioned tonight I'm recording episode 549. Episode 541 I did on June 18th. So only 6 weeks ago did we have the change. And that's what happened. The weekly TV product is suffering once again. We're going to go into all that tonight here on the program, the Wrestling Observer Podcast. Thanks for joining in, subscribing, finding the show how you do, whether you watch it on YouTube or you listen to it through all the different podcast portals. By the way, if you are on an iOS device, you listen through Apple, by all means, do subscribe to the show through Apple Podcasts. And I love all of you that subscribe through Stitcher and iHeartRadio and Spotify. Thank you. But also, if you are an Apple user, please make sure to go and download it and subscribe and rate and review the Wrestling Observer Podcast on Apple Podcasts. I would really greatly appreciate that. The ratings right now for Raw, and this is again, June 16th was when I talked about Bruce Pritchard taking over. Look at the ratings right here. Now, June 15th, 1.935 million. 1.922 for June 22nd, and then it drops to 1.7, to 1.6, to 1.5, and a little tick back up to 1.6. That's it. It's really amazing what we're seeing right now, but that's where we are. It's not good. When we're looking at ratings across the board, NXT also suffering. As we can see, their ratings are also not in a good shape. When you're looking at the last 2 weeks, they had 600,000 viewers. Can it be the same again as after tonight's program? We don't know. Meanwhile, SmackDown, which of course gets a lot of work on, you have, since the change, you had in the 2 millions for the most part for the month of June, and then going into July, 1.7 for the weekend of July 4th, 1.9 million 2 weeks ago, and then last Friday night, 1.8 million. So it's still kind of holding up, but still it's not helping because the ratings are taking a drop because they were able to reach the 2 million mark for a while, and it didn't. And they're having some troubles. So overall, the ratings have gone down. Here's what we got right now. Sean Reuter, Cage Side Seats, reports that cites rating concerns and creative problems in the decision to not recommend WWE stock. This is a problem because now WWE has to worry about their bottom line. Sure, they have their broadcast deals. Sure, they have the deals that can go back out to Saudi Arabia once again, and they'll find other ways to get their live shows back up, their merchandise. They have, of course, multiple models. But to have the stock being downgraded by analysts, you might not care about the finances. But when it comes to the business of the company, that's why wrestling is real to WWE, because if they're getting sold about this, and people are actually using this as a reason. Well, let's go into the story. So Lightshed Partners is a research firm. They do technology, media, and telecommunications. And they shed a report that was released on July 28th recommending investors take a neutral position on WWE stock should be taken a little more seriously than anything from more than yours truly or any of the other hundreds of armchair analysts tweeting and commenting, about Vince McMahon's company. So again, what that means in the financial sense, it's not, people are not being recommended to buy WWE stock, nor are they being told to sell it. But they're in a bit of a purgatory. It's not a good place to be. They want to be looked at as a company that is on the move, that is making good money, that is making good moves. They're getting some revenue back. They're on the way back up. They're continuing their content, and it's doing well. The ratings are doing well. The creativity is well, and they're looking like the long-term future of the company will look strong. Now, it has looked strong because of the broadcast deals they have. They have guaranteed money in place. But what they need now is short-term help. They need short-term growth. And even if they have guaranteed money on them right now with Fox and NBC Universal, they have to get this right. They have to right the ship because then they cannot be performing badly to their broadcast partners. And the shareholders need to be seeing that this company is making progress. Even with a pandemic, it's like a reopening. They need to be able to say, hey, we're getting ourselves back on the market. So the content has to keep momentum up. And there's a lot of people looking for new content. WWE is one of the few shows or few companies that are actually providing television content for several networks. They're providing hours of broadcast content, fresh, brand new content, which is not on a Zoom conference call and which is also not on, it's some ways, it might be taped live, but it's as live and it's entertainment. And it's not in the can. Like, there's a lot of money being put into it, and there's got to be returned back. So into the story. They discuss the future of WWE Network, prospects for a major player like Disney buying the streaming service, the network, international growth opportunities. The strategy, they say, they'd like to see WWE continue on with things like tiered offerings in an effort to increase subscribers and revenue, especially interesting as they contradict the plan being espoused by management at the company's recent annual shareholders meeting. So again, the idea of tiered deals, making it where you already have a free tier, you can have a $9.99 tier and a $14.95 tier for premium content. So the uncertainty the pandemic adds is acknowledged. But even in this non-COVID world, the concerns are still there. They are worried about the ratings performance of Raw and SmackDown, how those will affect domestic television contracts that WWE relies on for its revenue, how concerns about the company's creative shortcomings are contributing to a ratings decline. Here's what they said specifically. At the end of the day, the company eats on its Raw and SmackDown television contracts. Domestic rules for Raw and SmackDown were a financial game changer for the company. And the reason the stock crumbled is because international deals did not follow the same trajectory and came in net from the last round despite the gaudy social media figures. So yeah, they're not making the kind of money on broadcasting overseas like they did with the really big deals they got for Fox and for NBC Universal. This is not changing anytime soon. We do not see a clear better economics than the TV ecosystem is providing for content or for any sports or sports-like content. Perhaps the tech giants will one day get more deeply involved in live sports and live entertainment and precipitate an accretive model change. So the idea is it's only cable and broadcast TV making deals for WWE, and that's the same thing for live sports. So they're kind of compacted in the same realm as live sports like UFC, NASCAR, NFL, NFL, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, and others. And that's the thing, is there a future for them? Because are they going to be as valuable? Because right now, the value that was paid for by the broadcast partners is probably a little grossly overvalued. They probably put a big price tag. And for Vince McMahon, hey, you got a great deal. But they probably paid too much for it at the end of the day. Like a light shed sitting right here. And that's what they did. But they got to take advantage of it. And they have to be able to go ahead and make good on this. Because right now, to bring in worse ratings, going on, week after week, in the new broadcast deals is a bad problem. Now, all this tells you one thing. The margin for error for WWE content is going to be lower than ever, especially on the content for these shows. So again, they cannot continue to have an erosion. So here's what they're saying. And I'll tell you, the details are money. And this is their bottom line. This is where there is a big panic button right now that needs to be pushed and aggressively pushed until you break your thumb. Okay? The content has not resonated. Ratings have been disappointing essentially since the current deals were inked. They're absolutely right. Such a major problem right now where you can only take the COVID situation as an excuse for so long. You really can. I mean, they were on a pretty high note, especially with Edge coming back for Royal Rumble. And they, had some interest after WrestleMania, but again, it was still the way they did it. It was like they were trying to make the best of a bad situation, and they did. But ever since WrestleMania, the off season, which I don't mention enough, especially this year because the pandemic just changed everything, it's really hurting now. It's significantly bad right now. Declines in TV viewership have been part of the problem, but sports/live had held up better than the rest of the ecosystem. And one of the reasons the current partners were willing to pay is that WWE itself was holding up much better than the rest of TV. And Fox almost fortuitously sold most of his assets to Disney, and WWE fit with his programming strategy. Because remember, this deal also happened when Disney bought Fox. And Disney, as far as I know, they've always been very critical of the deals that are being made, but this deal got done before the merger. And now Disney, if they could see a way out of the contract, or if they could see that, there's a ticking time clock on this deal, that the sooner that this deal subsides, the faster they're going to get out of it and never renew again. This is a new deal, right? And if they go back to NBC Universal with a tail between their legs to bring SmackDown back, it's going to come at a lower price. And so the kind of money they're making right now isn't going to stay like that for long. So this ultimately is well set. And this is scary news if you're in Titan Towers. If you're in Stamford, Connecticut, you are shitting right now at stories like this, because this is not something to throw away. Podcasters, my podcast brethren, wrestling fans, this cannot be overlooked. This is serious business for them. This is a serious analysis right now of the company from a financial standpoint. Move along here. Now, of course, COVID-19 has compounded the problem. We absolutely do not want to minimize the impact. So they're taking benefit of the doubt. But again, that being said, AEW and NXT ratings have been climbing back. In July, AEW was up again. They are citing All Elite Wrestling right now. This is a problem. You're seeing your competition now being recognized from a financial sense, which, unfortunately, if AEW ever went public and Tony Khan decided to take the company public, there might be some interest, because they're on an upswing. They have the momentum right now. In July, AEW was up 11% versus April on average. NXT has notably improved both March and April in the past 2 months. Meanwhile, both Raw and SmackDown have taken a leg down in the past month. Raw's down 10%, SmackDown down 8% compared to the prior month, and both down 15% compared to April. So again, even during the pandemic, there's been a loss of audience. It's eroding. This is content. They had the audience during the pandemic. They're losing them now. And this is on the company. Now, understanding seasonality in the calendar, we looked at the ratings in terms of year-over-year declines. In July, Raw ratings have been down 37%, SmackDown 6%. Since even with SmackDown's move to Fox broadcast. Of note, Raw viewership has made fresh all-time lows multiple times this year. Ratings are likely to set the decline as sports returns, especially with the NBA coming back on Thursday night. WWE has a sustained period with less live competition, and that is coming to an end. Absolutely right. They were uncontested by sports, and I even said during this point, they had the opportunity because they were the only live style of sports that we had going on. A wasted opportunity. Wasted. Now, Vince McMahon has acknowledged things need to change multiple times. However, while there have been short-lived experiments, the content appears to be continuously returned to a similar formula under his absolute control. McMahon went so far as to hire creative heads for Raw and SmackDown a year ago. These guys know what they're talking about. Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff, they mentioned the story. These guys are not just overlooking things. This is a detailed report that's going to potential shareholders and those who are shareholders right now. Anybody who is now publicly invested in this company that has stock, of which I've had before, and then dropped off. This is huge. They're telling the story extremely detailed. They know what's going on. This is not anything to do with having some people that are in the financial sector that are completely out of touch. No, these guys actually have their finger on the pulse of the current state of World Wrestling Entertainment. They absolutely know what's going on right now. They are calling it out front and center. It is the absolute truth. This goes to the front of everything I'm worried about with this company. This is why I concern myself every week about this show and the ratings that they do deal with it and the creative. Everybody talks about it. But again, this story, this analysis says a lot. This report, it should hit alarm bells. Okay. This is a ratings crisis. This has to get handled immediately. And there has to be a shakeup. There has to be something that gets done here. If that means Vince needs to step away from the absolute control, because it's not him anymore, or they got to start hitting on some things right now, immediately. So now, one of the largest problems we have identified is an inability to create new superstars. These guys are telling me only something that we all know. Yes. But for them to recognize that is very important. Now, they're going to try to explain this a bit. Let's go into it. Here we go. This report is so accurate and thorough, and it goes exactly to the way I think about this company. It goes exactly to the way I think this company is. It's so well explained. I'm going to hold on to this story because I can come back to this again and again because they know the state of the company, the current state of the company. They got it right here. I don't even have to say anything else. I can just read this and I got it. Now into the story again. Every era of WWE wrestling has been defined by some key stars at the top. Recent years have been bereft of that star power, with Roman Reigns the closest, but never on that same level. More broadly, there really has been very little younger talent that have broken through at all on their way to replenishing even the middle level of stars in the men's division. Yes, to replenish a mid card that is weak, because the mid card should be strong, but the mid card is book weak with very little main event status on any of those stars. That's on the company. It's not, they don't have the talent. They're not using them right. We've talked about this ad nauseum. This has made the company more susceptible to injuries and absentees of major stars. Much of the talent with drawing power is aging, and this is the change from Bruce Pritchard taking back over the reins from Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman was trying to get new blood in. Now it's the other way around. It's old-fashioned booking. And the big draws for major events have been in bringing back even older wrestlers such as Goldberg and The Undertaker. That is a Band-Aid, not a long-term strategy. I mean, highlight that right there. Put a big dart on that, because that is a bullseye. It's crushing. It's so well said. It seemed that McMahon had identified this problem and may be committed to solving it through Raw. On last quarter earnings call, he spoke about Raw. He said this, quote, "Raw suffered, but not necessarily because of the environment. It suffered because we bring in a lot of new talent into Raw, and it takes a while to get these new talents over. We no longer have Brock Lesnar, obviously, but we have a new champion and a lot of new performers coming into it Raw. It takes a while. So that's the reason how you use these performers in the story or that story, what happens. So with new talent, it's just going to take a little while. I'm convinced, though, that Raw's ratings are going to bounce back considerably. We believe that the strategy with Heyman was to work towards building this talent, even if it took time. That seemed like an important change. However, 7 weeks later, Heyman was gone. Since that time, Raw's focus has shifted more heavily to much more established stars. It has not worked. As we mentioned, viewership declines are accelerating again. Here's one more point in this particular piece that Cage Side Seats decided to go ahead and highlight. WWE has a few years before entering back at the Raw and SmackDown negotiations. Again, got another 4 years to go. There is time to fix the roster, especially with the development pipeline in NXT. This should have been done before the deals were signed. And we said this for years before that. Especially with the development pipeline at NXT, that brand is meant to be more than just a competitor to AEW. A longer-term approach This is interesting here. And this is going to create... I want to know what the management... I want to know what the team in Stanford is thinking when this is said right here. A longer-term approach, even if ratings return more slowly, is probably the right prescription. Perhaps NXT creative head Paul Levesque, Triple H, could be helpful in helping right the ship. Leave that right there. They said it. They said it. That's incredible. I mean, it's incredible. Lightshed Management. Incredible. Incredible how well they pointed this out. I mean, I'm very impressed. Very impressed. So with that said, I'm going to leave that right there. But again, excellent story. Excellent story. More into this. Variety.com, good. As I record, this is not good. When you got down the entertainment rags now writing about this, here we go. Vince McMahon's WWE is running out of time. That's the first sentence in this story from Variety.com and Gavin Bridge. Now, WWE stock has proved notably robust in the face of the sustained declines of key metrics of fan engagement, such as merchandise spend, subscriptions to the network, and falling TV ratings. So, the quarter two earnings call took place earlier this afternoon as I record. Now, I have not had a chance to read what was in the earnings call as of yet. Now, they haven't put all the details about what the current earnings call said, but what I'll say is what they already offered so far. Earnings per share is up. Their operating income before debts and acquisitions, $49.3 million for this second quarter. So there were some positives that I said, but we don't know the whole story yet. Now, back into the story from Variety. The second quarter ratings on Fox are only 100,000 viewers greater than it was in 2019 on USA and below 2017 and 2018 levels. So the bounce that they might have had from cable to network TV is almost over. Again, they should have gotten a bigger audience as a result, but it's not. And by every quarter, you're looking right now, it continues to drop. So we always know that the ratings are a little bit higher during Royal Rumble and WrestleMania time. WrestleMania season in 2017, it was 3.2 million, 3.3 million in 2018, 2.7 in 2019, 2.2 in 2020. And then the off season, which would be April, May, and June, 2.9, 2.9, 2.4, 1.8. That's from 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. Same thing kind of happens where there's a little bit of consistency on the SmackDown average. We're still staying above 2 million viewers. Vince McMahon for years sought to pin the blame on underperforming ratings on short-term excuses. And one of the excuses they said was that the time for those dwindling audiences, the absence of key superstars, and found it to be false. This Variety Intelligence Platform report, special division of Variety.com. More recently, falling ratings have been blamed on COVID-19 and influx of new talent in the first quarter of 2020, and taking time to be able to develop the right storylines to the right talent, needing to focus on the in-ring product and need to have deeper, better storylines. This is what he said. This is what the short-term excuses have been in the last year. It's possible that for the declines, the excuses that Vince will use in the call is revisiting that new stars need to be made, given the absence of several superstars due to the pandemic, notably Roman Reigns. See, here's the thing: without knowing what was said on the investors' call, the earnings call, we don't know what was said. But what I can imagine was said is the fact that people are freaking upset, and I would imagine that the shareholders are going to say, "Hey, what the hell's going on here? This is bad. We need to get this changed around." Actually, the call is later on today. So what I'm going to do is, if I get a chance, I might do a Wrestling is Real Extra and talk about it. But it has not been said yet. But I'm imagining as everybody catches this show tomorrow, by this point, what will have to have happened is that the company's going to have to answer for all the problems they're having right now with their product. Like, if Vince McMahon is going to get pressure to say, okay, your excuses are no longer valid. You can't pull the same bullshit with us anymore. Maybe it's time. Maybe Vince McMahon he'll be criticized to the point that he may have to step down and relinquish creative control, the final say in the product. It might no longer be his decision anymore. He might lose that opportunity right now, because now it's at the point where it's at a breaking point. This is a breaking point for the company. The pandemic is not helping at all, so they can absolutely say, "Hey, you know what? That's enough." Variety.com reports that investors should be worried. No improvement has been made in ratings. If audiences continue to trend down, there's little chance that last year's huge renewals will be repeated when the current deals are up. And by the way, I looked again at the NYSE's ticker. I just looked again at what the current price right now for the WWE stock. It is down today. And by the way, if I'm looking back just in the past, let's go. Okay, going back to the worst time that the company was dealing with, March 23rd. That's when everybody had Black Tuesday. It was a horrible, or Black Monday, horrible day. The price went down to $30.44. And remember, if I go back a year ago, actually, let me go back 5 years ago. There was a point where the price was up to $96. September 2018. That's when the broadcast deals were signed. Yep. That's when the broadcast deals came into play. Now, scroll all the way back up to March 2020. The price would come back up to $44. It's right now where it's been. It's at its highest right now since the pandemic, because it got to as high as $48 on June 8th. And it has tumbled off a little bit, and it's just kind of been up and down. But the lowest has really gone since that point was $39, April 23rd. But really, in this last month or so, I could say, it has been no lower than $41. Watch that ticker. If this price goes down under $40, we got problems. And there's a good chance that the earnings call is going to be disappointing, and WWE stock is going to drop. It's got a good chance of dropping right now. And let me tell you, it's not good for them. It's right now where the company's had the worst of their drop since. In the last year, it's not good for them. They're hurting right now in a bad way. I don't know what they're going to do. At this point last year, they were $73. They're so far and away from that right now. That's not good for them. They're in a rough spot. And that price is going to drop tomorrow. So it's going to drop as we see this over the weekend. Just wait and see. Back to Variety. Given how often McMahon referred to the need to improve storylines, it's a wonder that investors are yet to hold him accountable for the consistent line that things have to improve. Second quarter this year has been a mixed bag. Fox Sports canceled WWE Backstage, part of their cross-network push, when they signed up SmackDown due to poor ratings. They lost one of the shows that was originally planned, that was supposed to do really well for Fox Sports 1. Canceled. You could say it's COVID, but I don't know about that. Then WWE was also dealing with numerous wrestlers, on-air talent, backstage personnel testing positive with the coronavirus. And then WWE only then implementing nasal tests. Now, the current content they're seeing on the flagship shows could arguably be said to have constantly been the best it's been in several years. Long-term character arcs for stars like Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt, storylines recalling prior events and relationships between wrestlers. But the issue is that fans, literally millions of fans who were invested in tuning in regularly in 2017 are now burned out and no longer interested. The potential for audience desertion has been apparent for years. Investors simply rated the short-term financial gains McMahon was negotiating for TV networks in place of sustained long-term growth. So he can't put Apple before the cart anymore. Instead, McMahon's feet, this is Variety saying this, McMahon's feet should be held to the fire, with Wall Street asking how much longer is needed to create compelling stories of new stars that catches the public's imagination. Should McMahon be taken to task, then it will be a sign that finally investors are realizing that without an audience invested in content, there will be no future revenue bonanzas for WWE. And then the windfall is going to drop. This is a crisis point for this company. And I am talking to you right now, recording this tonight, the calm before the storm. No doubt, shit's going to hit the fan. Lack of merchandise, drop off of network subscriptions, ratings drop. Perfect storm is here. And it's going to hit this company. This company should feel like it's 1995 all over again. Because it is. Believe it or not. And for the fans out there that you're not able to grasp and get your mind into what's going on here. This is a cause for concern. This company is in a financial peril right now. It's not going to get dropped off and destroyed overnight. No, but the momentum they've been having and being able to kind of just go along to get along, the kind of just stretching along and working what they have and just kind of working short-term band-aids just to keep things going without an overall solution. They need another attitude era, not an attitude era like I'm talking about. They need another era. They're out of the PG era. We don't know what this era is, but something's got to happen here. I don't know what that's going to be, but something has to happen now. This is a rough spot. I don't know what you do. The last thing, honestly, that really did bring up a spike in ratings, believe it or not, and I'm telling you the company could possibly do it, they could try to restart the NXT invasion. Factions can be coming into play once again, but something a little bit bigger and much more stronger. But you got to do something here. Something's got to happen. I don't know what they're going to do, but you have to pull the trigger on some big things here. And the booking on this program cannot be laissez-faire. They got to figure something out. This is a big problem for them. For AEW and for all the other wrestling outlets, this is an opportunity for them. This is a major opportunity. WWE's in their heels right now. They're going to be on their heels right now. They don't know it yet, but as I record this tonight, by 5 o'clock tomorrow, when they announce their earnings at the end of the stock, at the end of the closing bell, tomorrow afternoon, when they talk to their investors, oh shit. What are they going to say? What can they possibly do to stay at bay with what's going on here? Oof. This is a big story. This is the moment we could see Vince McMahon being pulled from power. Vince McMahon might have to step down from everyday creative. It might be done for him. This might be it. I never thought I'd say that, but I thought he would do it on his own terms. He might be pushed out. Not out of any management role, but I think he'll be pushed out of the day-to-day operations in terms of the creative, in terms of the content itself. And for that sake, I think Triple H and Stephanie or Shane or whoever, Triple H is going to have to come in and intervene. We already know he's already been involved, but maybe Triple H needs to go and come in right now, take himself out of NXT, and work on the main roster. It's time. It is time right now, more than ever. It's scary. And the story continues. Only a couple days ago, we had a story about the company eviscerating Paul Heyman guys, because what we also saw was the constant burial of stars that Paul Heyman was trying to build. So some of the projects that Paul Heyman had reportedly were Andrade, Austin Theory, Viking Raiders, Street Profits, Aleister Black, Murphy, Angel Garza, Zelina Vega, and Apollo Crews. So Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer Newsletter, reported many of the aforementioned Paul Heyman guys were concerned about their careers with Heyman no longer in charge. The concerns have been legitimized as WWE right now is concerned in the effort to refocus on what's past with Randy Orton, Big Show, MVP. And MVP is negotiating a long-term contract with the company. I don't know if it's been done yet. And having Ric Flair come back to work with Randy Orton. Aleister Black losing cleanly to Seth Rollins. Then you had Matt Riddle. And he was doing some things right now, and then he took a loss to AJ Styles, right? The 50-50 formula, where Riddle pinned AJ Styles in a debut. He suffered his first loss in an IC title match against AJ Styles 1 month into his debut. Already like that. Apollo Crews. So there's word that COVID-19 is why Apollo Crews is not on television. So MVP has been posing as the United States champion, of which Apollo Crews is. Andrade, Angel Garza, Austin Theory, and many other Heyman projects have languished amid a directionless 3-hour show faced with a historically alarming ratings slump. And going back to the old guard has proven to be only temporarily effective. A spike in June viewership that we started seeing all-time lows for this programming. Also growing the lowest 18 to 49 demographic rating of all time. Same thing for Friday Night SmackDown. Top stars and audience desperately needs to get younger. There's no quick fix that will solve a deep-seated, potentially irreversible concern with a flawed and disorganized administration. And everything culminates on the shareholders' call. I will do an extra show. An extra episode. I'm going to do a Wrestling is Extra over the weekend on YouTube after I learn what's going on with your shareholders call and see what's being said and what kind of buzz we get back. And then we'll come back to the podcast next week and talk about it. At the moment, they're looking to go and have Edge and Randy Orton in another match coming up at WrestleMania in 2021. Paul Heyman was looking to go ahead and get SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, and WrestleMania plans well in advance. And right now, SummerSlam is being put piecemeal right now as we speak. Also, McMahon changed the Royal Rumble winner from Shayna Baszler to Charlotte Flair at the last minute. So right now, a lot of NXT call-ups that Paul Heyman knew and was familiar with and brought up, they're now in limbo because Bruce Pritchard isn't familiar with the product and doesn't know what to do with them. And that's where we are. Another story from CBR.com. And Jesse Rodriguez writes that Vince McMahon recently acknowledged the need to push younger talent. Unfortunately, it's not being reflected on Raw and SmackDown. The sudden stop of pushes coincides directly with Vince McMahon's inability to book NXT call-ups. This has never been sold on Shayna Baszler, and Aleister Black is looking much better. Raw had seemingly brought back Bianca Belair from an unnecessary absence following her call-up, but she isn't showing much direction at the moment either. The talent in NXT has been praised by Vince has been praised by Vince himself, yet every single one of them flounders on the main roster. Instead of actually turning to his younger stars, he obsesses over established superstars and continues to invite part-time legends back. It's hard to take Vince's commitment to building new stars seriously when Raw is predominantly focused on Orton, Rollins, Rey Mysterio, and The Big Show. I mean, it doesn't matter how much time you spent with it. You just can't keep going back to the well with this. So Aleister Black got a loss to Seth Rollins as first. Announcers didn't even make the point of it. And now it looks like Aleister Black might not even be on TV. He's looking like he might be written off. Also, it's not just Seth Rollins that Vince is obsessed with. He can't seem to get over the 4 horsewomen: Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, and Bayley, which has stunted the growth of Shayna Baszler, Lacey Evans, and Liv Morgan, just to name a few. Even worse is never-ending lust for bringing back part-time legends and undercutting the elevation of fresh superstars. Now, we're accustomed to seeing the company bring in legends for special occasions, but these returning legends can be completely detrimental when they go over the present-day superstars. So Brock Lesnar and Goldberg winning major titles over modern talent isn't a way to build new stars, especially when doing so it derails the momentum of the likes of Bray Wyatt and Kofi Kingston. Exactly right. Even worse, full-time superstars like Drew McIntyre and Braun Strowman eventually do defeat these legends. Vince still finds a way to undermine their reigns as well. There's a good chance Braun Strowman might be losing that title pretty soon because, look, we haven't seen him defend it much, and this story with Bray Wyatt doesn't even require the belt. But it's just they don't know what they're doing. The cinematic matches have been great, but that's just a small unwit of what's going on here. They might have discovered that. They might have done some creative ways to make the pay-per-views much more interesting and unique every month. Sure, they've done that. They have themed all their normal pay-per-views, and I must give credit because of the fact that it's just not a pay-per-view that has to do the matches because of the pay-per-view that it is. Every pay-per-view since WrestleMania has had something special. Too big for one night, you know, the corporate climb for Money in the Bank, the greatest wrestling match ever for Backlash, and the horror show Extreme Rules. I mean, again, it's really interesting how they did the pay-per-views. I think they're doing really well with those. So far, I'm pretty happy with those. The booking, the TV show, not so much. So you can't just rely on gimmicks for the pay-per-views to do well. There's got to be the weekly product has to improve. Because I'll tell you, I watch the show every week, and I tell you, it's much more of a backdrop and a background for me doing other things than it is anything else. Because I am not really paying attention to the matches. Really, I'm not. Not even close to what I was doing years ago. But I still have it on in the backdrop, and I'm still watching it. But I'm not totally sitting there. Like, I have an ottoman in front of my crown here, my throne here that I sit on to watch television, and I have my laptop in front of me. I'm doing work while I have TV on. But I can't say there's been a time, especially in the last year, where I've truly, maybe pay-per-views, yes, but we're absolutely just, okay, I'm going to pull my computer off to the side. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to put my feet up, put my ottoman up, because the ottoman, I just move it away so I can move the tray, my table, so I can listen. I can go on the computer. I don't go to a desk. I sit on my couch, my chair here, and I bring this little tray that brings the laptop to me, so I can work from here. And all I got to do is just slide the tray away, when I want to go put my feet up and I bring the ottoman over. If I'm actually committed to putting my feet up on the ottoman, that means I'm invested in watching television. I'm not even paying attention to my laptop. And my phone I'm going to be fiddling with, but I'm watching the show. I'm actually focused on watching the show. I haven't done that with Raw and SmackDown in a while. Not at all. I get that for AEW. I get that for Impact Wrestling. But not this. No. Not at all. It's a major problem. And we know what the answer is, but this company needs to go and do something here. And I am all for. This is no disrespect to Vince McMahon. Thank you for all of the work that you've done to make this company what it is today. He gets as much credit in the world as he wants. Because at the end of the day, he did make this company what it is. He is, if when everybody else has given up on it, he's always been the one that hasn't. We need to see a succession in power. And if Triple H has a chance to go and run the books, let him do it. I don't think it's going to be any worse. I really don't. I think Triple H will give this a right chance. He's had a lot of time at NXT to make that happen. And he's done a pretty damn good job of it. I mean, they do try hard. So let Triple H take over. Let's get Kevin Dunn. Let's get the regime out of here. Let's get some fresh minds. And by all means, get Bruce Pritchard out of this mix. Bruce Pritchard should not be running the show right now. Or if you're going to have to do it, then make Triple H and Bruce Pritchard work together, and Triple H has autonomy. Bruce Pritchard cannot be the person that runs the show. At least Triple H, I feel like maybe will have something here to provide in what's going on here. I don't know what else you do, but there's got to be some answer. Something. There has to be. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. We're going to come back for another Wrestling Gazelle podcast. Wrestling Gazelle Extra coming up this weekend. I'll put up on the YouTube channel. You'll find a link for it right there on the page, WrestlingGazelle.com. Look for it. As we'll find out what's going on after the shareholders call. I'll find out something over the weekend, and I will go into a quick report about that there. So until then, and now if it's a bigger story and I need to take more than 30 minutes to talk about it, I will do an extra special. I'll do a special edition of the show just to talk about it. Just to go over what's going on with what they said. Because if something major happens, if Vince is forced to step away from the creative chair, if he's forced out of position and the announcement is made, or we're hearing something like that to the effect, then I got to talk about that on a regular show. But I'll keep you in touch on what I do. Anyway, come back for another Wrestling Gazelle podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Thank you for listening to the Wrestling Gazelle podcast, brought to you by KingofAmazon.com. For more information on how to subscribe to the show, how to share the Wrestling Gazelle podcast to listeners like you, and check out the latest wrestling headlines, go to WrestlingIsReal.com. That's WrestlingIsReal.com.